Hello and welcome to race 5 of season 11 of the All Assists Off League, where this time we head to Singapore to see just who can take the lead of both the Drivers and the Constructors Championship. It is of course a night race, and it is the first time this season we will see, and I think the only time this season, that we are going to see a full qualifying session. So we have an 18-minute first qualifying session for you, as opposed to the usual 18-minute full qualifying session. Of course, the bottom 5 drivers, or in this case 4 drivers, will be eliminated from the session, which will then allow 5 more drivers to be eliminated through Q2, and then finally we'll see the 10 cars left in a shootout. The top 10 then will get the quickest times, and of course we'll start the race depending on where they finish at the end of the shootout session. Joining me to go through it, hopefully his microphone's all working now. I've just asked him before we've gone live to make sure he is there. Skin, are you there?
Aye.
There he is, he's here, ready. Skin, I suppose the first question I've got to ask you is, you missed it a couple of weeks ago when it was a 1-2 for the Red Bulls of Danger David and D. Perez, and that was in the absence of AMS Johnsy. We are once again in the absence of AMS Johnsy. There's a chance you could see a Red Bull 1-2 again. How exciting is that for you?
I could possibly, mate, but there are plenty of other talented drivers on this grid tonight who I'm sure will want to make sure that doesn't happen. So looking forward to see how this goes. Singapore, tough race. We know our experience of commentating on this league in street races isn't always the smoothest. Azerbaijan was an absolute mess from start to finish. So Singapore has the potential of throwing up a similar type of race. We know how tough it can be, so anything can happen over the next sort of I say hour and a half to 2 hours or so. With it being a full qualifying session, do you think that strategies and approaches change with these drivers being used to a one-off, or not? Well, it's not a one-shot, is it? But a short qualifying session. They now obviously move into the full qualifying session that drivers in real life have to face. What do you think the approach is, or what the difference could be, and between the short qualifying, and a full session?
I think it is going to be extremely different because, of course, in the last couple of races we've seen the 18-minute one qualifying session take place, and then the formation lap. However, the formation lap and the glitch that EA gives us with the formation lap means that everyone's got to start the race again. So the tyres that they've used in that qualifying session doesn't really count. It's a bit different today because of the full qualifying session and no formation lap. That means the tyre usage that they're getting now will roll over into the race. So they've got to be a bit smarter with the strategies that they're going for to make sure that they're giving themselves the best opportunity to get a strong finish, especially in the absence of AMS Johnsy. And yes, I am looking at Danger David and VSM Sandman with their opportunities to climb further ahead, should I say, towards the top. We do have a couple of new drivers on the grid as well. Tobolenzin joining against VSM Sandman, should I say, in the Ferrari, and Tarkan Gino in the Alpha Tauri, starting his first race today on the All Assists Off League. We are on board at the moment with the Nocebo in McLaren. He has gone purple in Sector 1, and he's now gone purple in Sector 2 as well on this timed lap. He is the first driver out on track, though, which means those could all change over the course of the next 5 minutes or so as more cars go out there and set times, as it looks like he's coming up to the back of his teammate. Out there at the moment is, of course, Maverick, who's done quite a few practice sessions on this track. This, of course, being my favourite track, Skin, to race in, the one that I'd always love to go and watch live as well. The night race just grips my attention from start to finish, and of course the fact it's a street race means that there's going to be entertainment on there as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it is your top pick. You know what I'm like for asking questions, and one of the questions over the years while we've discussed F1 is, if you could pick one race, one weekend, all expenses paid, which would be the location you'd go to? Which race would you attend? And Singapore has always been your answer for that question. So yeah, Toxic just took provisional poll, but we've got a lot of drivers out on the track who I'm sure will be looking to see to that as they go round. Sandman and Danger David on their timed laps as it stands. I'm just on board with Sandman. What do you think about the arrival of a newcomer to the track in Tobolenzin, or whatever you want to say, in the Ferrari? Teammate for Sandman. We spoke last week about The advantage that Red Bull have got in the constructors is that both drivers are consistently up there in terms of points. Do you think Sandman could be making an approach to sign a new teammate on a full-time basis should this newcomer have a good performance today?
I think the question's certainly going to be there. You look at Danger David and D. Perez and the teamwork that they've got going on. They said they've been racing for years, and that kind of understanding between the two of them is evident on multiple occasions throughout the season. I think you're certainly going to be looking from Sandman thinking, if you're going to win the Drivers' Championship, you're going to need somebody that's going to assist you, because it's almost like an unfair fight at the front if D. Perez is performing well. And of course, 2 weeks ago, he won the race. So there's no reason to believe that they're not going to perform well again. So, yeah, I think this is where Sandman could be looking at it thinking, you know what, Ferrari could get a different teammate for next season if things go well. Tobalenzen has gone 142.0. If I am mispronouncing that, I will apologise. But for every newcomer that has joined this track, at some point or another, I have absolutely botched their names. So I do apologise. If you want to just drop me a message in the Discord, tell me how to pronounce it. I'll carry on doing it my way anyway. Racing Wheel on a 2 minute 9 seconds
fault,
is currently...
Make it easy to read, mate. It's not your fault.
There we go. I'm on board with Sandman at the moment, who aborted his lap, hitting red on every sector on his way round. We have got a yellow flag currently in Sector 1. It doesn't look like it's too serious at the moment. I think it is Tobalenzen just after going past the checkered flag. He's just steadying things down to head back into the pits. So at the moment it is Perez, Ibo and VSM Sandman that are your three that will be eliminated. Of course, normally it's 20 down to 15 at the end of the first qualifying session, but today we only have 18 out on track. We are on board with VSM Sandman, as it looks like he is going to prepare himself, though, for a timed lap in just a moment. So I'm going to jump on board with D. Perez, as we joined there. You might have seen in the bottom right, he's gone purple in Sector 2 as he continues round there. Now, it looked like a little bit of a collision might have been coming his way from one of the Alfa Romeos, but he's managed to avoid it, and he's still out on track as he's about to go under the bridge with just a couple of corners left, and then a nice little quick corner onto the pit straight. These yellow flags are making it very difficult to keep up to date with things, isn't it, when you're not sure if there's an incident here or there. But Perez is going round onto the pit straight as we speak. 139.1 is the time to beat. He's at 140.2. That's good enough to get him fourth place on the grid at the moment, behind F1 Martin Hunt and Formula 1 Fares at second and third respectively. So we do still have 5 cars out there at the moment yet to set a time. That is Tark and Gino, Kwan 23, VSM Salmon and Sir Ibo, who are all sat in the pits. It is also RS 0121 in the Mercedes. His teammate has hit a 149.2 before heading into the pits. The thing is with these street races, you've already said and touched on the fact that in Vegas it was chaos, in Azerbaijan it was practically a non-starter. In these street races, the slightest error, you're going to end up in the wall, aren't you?
Yeah, and this is where you've got to take into account lunges into corners and things like that. There's not really, other than maybe the first couple of corners in Singapore, there's not really room to run off somewhere that doesn't lead you to be completely off track and mess up your race. So, yeah, like you said there, I mean, you mentioned a chaotic race in Vegas. I don't remember us racing in Vegas, so did I miss that one, or I can't remember? I'm not
the first race of the season.
Oh, was it? Yeah, but it's been oh yeah, of course it was. Of course it was. I'm still fuming how bad the game was when it came out, so I've tried to erase that from my memory. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, street races in this league haven't always led to the most exciting of races. Can they break the trend today? The evidence at the moment suggests that they may struggle to do that. But look, we're open to it, aren't we? We're open to a positive race, but yeah, it's just tough on these street races. They're competitive races. There's no one that's fighting to be at bottom of the pack. They're all fighting to climb up the grid, which leads to incidents. So, as it stands, rough guess, how many safety cars have you got coming out during the race today?
Just 2. I think we're going to get 2 safety cars. I think it's going to be a nice little race otherwise. I know I'm going to be absolutely wrong, and we're looking at least a dozen. But it's one of those things where the safety car's out, it upsets the rhythm for a number of drivers, and it sends them all into panic mode, I think, to an extent. And some then you start seeing crazy strategies decided upon, going onto hard tyres for the sake of 5 laps. We saw last week a couple of drivers staying on the hard tyres with 4 laps left on a safety car. So they got that opportunity to pit and maybe get softer tyres and, use that pace to help them. But they opted to go for the hard tyres, and I think we'd seen one in free fall at some point as well. As we're on board with RS0121, he has gone purple in Sector 1 on the medium tyres, so it's an interesting choice that some drivers are going for, of course, get them through into the second qualifying session. The one and the only full qualifying session that we've got this season, race 5 out of 8 so far. And we are on board with RS0121 as he comes round onto one of the longer straights, the second DRS zone on track. And he goes fastest in Sector 2 as well. So he's purple in Sector 1, purple in Sector 2. So it is advantage with the Mercedes. His teammate has qualified in 12th place. Just want to put it on record. If we did see what happened between Quincy and D. Perez during D. Perez's lap, Quincy has posted in the Discord apologising for this. So hopefully it'll be nothing too much to worry about. You've got to be worried of the pace that Red Bull is showing if D. Perez can still hit 4th place with a bit of an interruption. As we go around onto the pit straight now, on board with RS0121, 139.1's the time to beat. It's 139.5, 4 tenths slower than Danger David lost in that final sector. It does put him second, though, in the Mercedes, and there's not going to be too many complaints from him or his teammate Quincy if they can get a start that high up on the grid, as Trugster has been disqualified for parking up in the pit exit. So very dangerous parking from him as we jump on board with VSM Sandman, the current defending champion. And Skin, I dare say he's one of your favourites, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I was just trying to work my way around the grid to try and get some eyes on Trugster. I do apologise. The message was that he was disqualified for blocking the pit lane. But based on where he was on the track, I'm not. From what I could see, he was around halfway. Oh, he was about halfway around the track. So, yeah, sorry, I was just trying to piece a puzzle together in which I didn't really have any of the pieces. So, yeah, absolutely. Trugster, I don't know if you saw, he was in, I think he was about 4th or 5th at time of disqualification. Might be worth checking up on the Discord there to see what's happened. But, Sandman, I'm on board with him now, cutting corners like an absolute madman on a timed lap. 5.5 minutes left of the session. Really needs to start knuckling down and taking it seriously if he's wanting to get into the second qualifying period.
And we are on board with Sandman as he gets ready to come round onto the pit straight. The time to beat is 139.1, and he has decided to go into the pits. This is very, very risky because now he's only got 5 minutes to change tyres into whatever he wants and get himself back out on there and try and avoid any traffic from people trying to make these final stints. Now, we are on board with Sir Ibo, who's about to finish his outlap, going on to the pit straight. And he is now on his first timed lap of the session. Just under 5 minutes left to go. So around about 30-40 seconds before we probably see a lot of these drivers coming back out on track. I'm just looking on the Discord to see what has gone on. Trugster said that he slowed in the pit lane to let a flying car past and it disqualified him. So controversial there. Yeah, it's harsh, but it's also the rules, I guess, isn't it? You can't be parking up in the pit lane. I think there's always going to be that element there, isn't there?
I think if that was me, I'd obviously take my car around safely and slowly. I'd pull up and then I'd go to the steward's room and I'd batter the absolute life out of each and every person that was in that room. But Truxton may approach it a little bit differently. I'm on board with Quincy at the moment. He's just got
You'd pull a hamstring getting out of the car.
And the rest. Just on board with Quincy there. He managed to move up the field to 8th place. And some good news for Quincy. Episode 60 of Loaded Sport is out tomorrow. I know he's a fan, and it is a combat and F1 special, isn't it, Adam, with us focusing on football later in the week. So something for more content for him to watch tomorrow alongside this session that we're commentating on. By the time he's done catching up on everything, he'll be sick of hearing our voices. He'll regret the offer of bringing us into the league in the first place. But much better lap from Quincy there on the second attempt. Sandman is back out now on an outlap, and you're absolutely right. With 3.5 minutes left, I suppose the benefit is that it's just to get into Q2. He probably won't be worried too much about getting that provisional pole at the moment. It'll just be about getting into the top 15, which he should be able to do based on his history, but can't really now afford any traffic, any catching a wall and getting a bit of wing damage. He's getting to now or never stage, isn't he?
Yeah, and you look at some of these drivers that have stayed in the pits, Danger David, RSO121. In fact, the top 6 have stayed within the pits. It's top 7 now, obviously, with Quincy setting a 140.3 to get himself outside of the danger zone. VSM Saman is the only one that hasn't set a time yet, and we are going to jump on board with him as he is on an outlap. We were with Sir Ibo at a 144.2, which puts him in 15th place, which currently does get him eliminated from this session. So, we do have Racing Wheel down in 16th place as well on a 148.4. So the time to beat to get yourself out of the danger zone is a 143.7 on the provision that it does decide it's the bottom 3 that is eliminated from this qualifying session. Then, of course, 5 in Q2 and then the top 10 go into Q3 for a shootout session. We are now looking at the top 7 all set on their times. So, unless their times are beaten, they will be through to Q2. The Nosebo is out on track at the moment. Toxic CZ10 is another one that is staying in. T-Brand 1, so that's the 2 Alfa Romeos remaining inside as we just look with VSM Sandman going purple in Sector 1. So T-Brand is also in the pits. We've got Tarkan Gino coming out now, so it is going to be touch and go as to whether he can get across the line before that timer expires. Of course, if the timer does expire, you are able to finish your lap. If you start a new lap after the time has expired, you will not be able to push further forward, as we've got Tarkan Gino and Formula 1 Farah both out on outlaps at the moment. VSM Saman, we stay on board with as he comes up towards the end of Sector 2. 139.1 is the time to beat to get provisional pole. He's currently heading towards the end of Sector 2. He's got purple in Sector 1. He's gone purple in Sector 2 as well. So VSM Saman on what we can only describe as a hot lap then, as a one-shot qualifying session he's trekked this as in setting Q1. He's going to go round under the bridge in just a moment's time before taking that long left hand onto the pit straight to see if he can beat the time that gets him through into Q2 at the expense of McLaren's Maverick, who has remained in the pits and won't be able to beat his time. So he's hoping Suribo, Racing Wheel and VSM Sandman do not get good times. Here he goes onto the pit straight with a 143 to beat. He sets a 138.3, nearly a full second quicker than that of Nay Danger David. So it puts him on provisional pole heading into Q2. It does mean we will see Trugster, Racing Wheel 027 and Sir Ibo all out of the session. Of course, Trugster being disqualified a little bit earlier on. We still have a couple of cars out there at the moment. Racing Wheel is one of those, to see if he can beat the time set by Maverick of 143.7 to get himself out of the elimination zone. We've got Sir Ibo out on track at the moment as well on a 116 at the moment, going through Sector 2 into Sector 3. He needs to beat a 143.7 as well. It is the expense of Maverick if either of those can beat their times to get themselves through. We've got Quan and Maverick both in the pits. Neither of those can better their times. So if both Sir Ibo and Racing Wheel better their times, both Maverick and Quan will be eliminated from the session. As you can see, the checkered flags going past many of these drivers at the moment. We are on board with Sir Ibo as he goes on to the pit straight. A 143 is the time to beat. He doesn't get it. He gets a 144, which leaves him in 16th place at the moment. We're now back on board with Racing Wheel, who's just come from under the bridge. We're going to see him go now into the final DRS zone as well, or the detection zone, should I say, as well, onto the pit straight. Takes that left hand, but instead opts to go into the pits to destroy any momentum I was building up for his final lap. He hits a 146.2 as his best lap, so it is Trugster, Racing Wheel and Sir Ibo that leave us at the end of the first qualifying session. We'll jump on board with Tarkan Gino, who will be into Q2 regardless of the time he sets now, and Skid Solo in the Aston Martin up in 9th place as well. But Tarkan Gino set purple in Sector 2, a chance for him to maybe upset the rhythm that Sandman and Danger David have set already. We'll hear from Skin in just a moment's time while we prepare for Q2. We're in the last 2 minutes now as we finish off with the first qualifying session. We've got 12 minutes in Q2 to go through, as well as Tarkan Gino is in 13th place at the moment in the Alpha Tauri. He's going to go round to take the detection zone into the pit straight, see if he's going to go round for a timed lap. 138.3 is the time to beat. He's not going to beat it. He's gone past it. Onto the pit straight. He betters his time and gets up into 9th place. So it is Trugster, Racing Wheel 027 in the Alpine and Sir Ibo that leave us at the end of Q1. Survival for Maverick in the McLaren as a 143.7 is enough to put him through. Skin, you've rejoined us. VSM Sandman 138.3, 8 tenths quicker than that of Danger David. Are we beginning to see some flashes of the old Ferrari champion?
Maybe so, mate, and he absolutely threw my theory out that you didn't really need to worry about pole at this point. So if that is not a statement to Danger David and everybody else setting up on the grid today, He's got to be the favourite for pole and the race based on that alone, but we'll see. Anything can happen between now and lights out at the start of the race. And again, as we've discussed plenty of times during Q3 or Q1, sorry, anything can happen when it is a street race as well. So, yeah,
Right.
I think we take a quick break for 2 minutes and we get ourselves ready for Q2. I think you need to rest your voice a little bit after that.
Well, I was just about to tell you what had happened with Truxtun while we prepare for Q2, because he's posted a clip of what happened when he got disqualified and he was leaving the pit. And you know the little white line when you leave the pit exit onto the actual track that you're not allowed to cross? He was parked up in there to allow drivers to go past because there were cars coming around on timed laps. So he slowed down and stopped there to allow them to go past. Truxtun, mate, if you are listening, it's very harsh, but it's also the rules, mate. So, unfortunately, you will be disqualified and starting from the back of the grid. We saw a lot of medium tyres in the odd
too happy about that, mate.
Mate, it's the expense that you have to take sometimes to see my McLaren boys through to the next qualifying session. If Truxtun's got to finish last for it, I'm not going to argue. The No Sabo and Maverick are through. McLaren all the way. There we go. Right, so we are into Q2 now. A mix of medium and soft tyres we used in Q1. If you are just joining us, it is Quincy, D. Perez, Skid Solo, Martin Hunt and VSM Sandman that are currently in the elimination zone. Of course, the qualifying session has just started. Still plenty of time to go, but it gives you an idea that 11th through to 15th will leave us at the end of this qualifying session, depending on the times that are set. I don't expect many, if any, of those to be in that position come the end of this qualifying session. But the thing is, we can look at multiple drivers on that track and think there are plenty that we could say, don't deserve to be in that bottom five, but are going to end up in it at some point, aren't they?
Yeah, I would. You've got to imagine there'll be one at least semi-surprise of who drops out at this point. Again, anything can happen. Someone could run out of time. Someone can get caught somewhere. As Quincy and Martin Hunt are the first out on track, just ahead of Danger David and a couple of others as well. It looks like the majority of the track are pretty eager to set a time and get themselves out there. But Martin Hunt will be the first to set a time unless he stops and lets people go by, so I'll jump on board with him, and then Quincy will be second behind him. But yeah, quite interesting to see how many drivers have gone out pretty much straight away. Is that a case of try and avoid traffic and set a time and you've got plenty of time to rectify it, or do you think that you should sort of let people get out, give yourself an idea of what you need to be aiming for, and also free up a bit of the track and avoid traffic as well?
I think now there's no Parc Fermé rules in which you've got to use the same tyres in Q2 to start the race if you make it through to Q3. I think there's no harm in going out there nice and early. The thing is, we've got a train of cars that are out there circa England 2016 or 2014 or whatever year it was that we decided to put Harry Kane on corners and let a train make the way into the 2016, was it?
Yeah.
I know it was one of those. So yeah, I think some cars are going to have to slow down to just make sure, but I think any effort that they're putting into warming their tyres up at the moment, apart from the likes of Quincy, who's at the front, of course, I think it's Formula One Ferrari that's up there with him. It might even be Martin Hunt, actually, that are up there at the moment at the front of the grid. I think everybody else is going to have this little struggle where they're going to struggle to keep that heat in their tyres because they've got to slow down and it allows them to cool down, and that is going to be the difference to an extent as well. But everybody is now out on track, so we've got a full 15 cars out on the grid, and we are on board with Quincy. Skin, I think you are on board with whoever is at the front. I think it's Martin Hunt, isn't it, that's at the very front? So you're on board with him. So I'll let you take us through Martin Hunt's lap, and then we'll pick up from where you finish off when Quincy's on his way round.
Yeah, so Martin Hunt is just gone into some corner somewhere on the track, and he's just about to go around another corner somewhere on the track. As he approaches a right turn somewhere on the track, that will be quickly followed by a left turn somewhere on the track. How are you finding this? Do you think I'm going to be pushing Martin Brundle for a commentator gig?
Mate, who wants Martin Brundle's commentator gig? Let's be fair. All people want is his grid walk. You give me Martin Brundle's grid walk and I'll be happy for the rest of my life.
Yeah, true, mate, true. Who do, if you were doing the grid walk, just as Martin Hunt approaches the second half of the second sector, if you were doing the grid walk, who would be the one celebrity that you want to see on the track to be able to get a quick 30-second interview with?
You know what? I know this might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm stuck between two. Jeremy Clarkson and Richard Hammond. The two of them from Top Gear, obviously they've spoken cars for many years, and you get so many celebrities that are on the grid walk that just seem like, oh yeah, we've just been invited, so we've come along, yeah, this car's quick, isn't it? That sort of stuff. I think Jeremy Clarkson, albeit for 30 seconds, he could give me an actual analysis, and I could just leave him to talk for 30 seconds. He could tell me exactly what he's seen within these cars, and I think that's fantastic. So somebody like that I can just leave to do the talking for me, I think could be great, because you get so many that just don't seem to have that. But Danger David, what a response to VSM Sandman, 137.6. VSM Sandman at 138.3 at the end of the first qualifying session to put himself at the top to finish top of Q1. Danger David, it's a 137.6. Martin Hunt on a 139.7 is another excellent response as well. And T-Brand now in the Alfa Romeo in a 139.9. So these times are getting quicker throughout this qualifying session. So we might see a much more competitive front of the grid. And I hope so, because we all like competition, of course, as well. So we've got a park up on the pit straight, which I think is just being turned around. Yep, just turn around now. Very safely, of course, as well. We're going to jump on board with Maverick, who in a moment is going to finish his time lap. He only just escaped elimination from Q1. He's on a 139 at the moment. The time to beat to get him into the top 10 is 142.3. He's at a 142.9, leaves him in 11th place at the moment. His teammate, the Nosebo, up in 7th place. So I'm going to jump on board at the moment with Toxic, as VSM Sandman has done another little taster lap. He doesn't like what he saw, and he's headed straight back into the pit. So he looks like he's going to be heading towards another one-shot qualifying session. I'm going to jump on board now with Skid Solo, as D. Perez goes second fastest on a 139.1. And if this is the end of Q3, Skin, I know you're a Red Bull fan, so this might be a slightly biased answer, but you've got top drivers at the front. Even if VSM Sandman takes front, it's all about the start, but you've got two Red Bulls there right behind you, breathing down your neck. All it takes is one little mistake from a strategy, and that's it. You could be seeing yourself in third place, because you know Perez is good at defending, you know Danger David's good at defending, but both of them have that ability to put you under threat, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And like I say, great lap from Danger David there. D-Pro struggled a little bit there, but found a little bit of form. I think the concern when you look at the times is there is such a big gap between first and second as it stands. It's 1.5 seconds, which is not something that you often see at any level, esport or on an actual track. Sandman, like I say, I'm not really sure what the tactic is on going out and then coming back in without setting a time. He did that twice in Q1. Not really sure on that, but he is approaching an outlap now. Is it just a case of he's hit traffic? But we'll see. It looks like he's got a pretty clear track ahead of him as he enters that outlap. So yeah, interesting to see where he drops. He's going to have to improve on that Q1 lap to get provisional pole back with 8 minutes remaining.
A lot of patience from these drivers, patience that of course I don't have, considering the fact that when I've been driving around the track, if somebody ever slows me down, I just ease off and go again on those tyres. Boxing for newer tyres to go again is a completely different level of patience that I think I see from quite a few of these drivers that are out on track. So we are going to jump on board with VSM Sandman, as I think everybody else is now heading in towards the pits. He'll be the next one to set us a timed lap, and then it'll be down to Toxic CZ10 to see what he decides to do. Both of those haven't yet completed a lap in this second qualifying session. I got it wrong. It's 15 in Q2. It goes down to 12 in Q3. So we are on board with VSM Sandman. In the words of Skin, he's about to take a right corner somewhere on the track, heading in towards what will soon be going under the tunnel, and hopefully we'll not see any rain amidst all the chaos that it will give us, because I hate the idea of going under a bridge in the rain, and I hate it when it happens in Monaco because it's the worst. You've got a dry patch, of course, under the bridge, and you're on wet tyres, so you're absolutely flying through this wet weather, having to go under a bridge with no rain whatsoever, so it can cause an absolute stir. But we are on board with VSM Sandman, who has almost a clear track ahead of him as he goes round onto the pit straight, opens up his DRS nice and early, and heads into the first corner to try and beat the time of 137.6 set by Danger David. And I'm in absolute awe over that time that he has set. I thought it was quite good that Sandman hit a 138. But it looks like, to me, VSM Sandman might actually have slowed down on these corners as well. He's not happy again with the times that have been set. So he's up into 8th gear now, but he was taking that last one in 4th gear relatively slowly for what I thought he should have been taking it in. Again, he's a driver and there's a reason for it. So we'll see just what his decision is. But I thought he was heading out for a time lap. There's only 6 minutes left, so if he is going to head in, it's going to be a case of a one-shot qualifying session for him as well. Is it a case? Because it just seems like, for me, VSM Sandman is an adrenaline junkie who enjoys this one-shot qualifying session, because I don't think I've ever seen him set a time yet where he doesn't have to head into the pits for a bit first. Nice one. I'll carry on talking to myself, no problem. So he does seem to be slowing down, so we are going to jump on board with Toxic CZ10, who is out on a time lap, and he's just going around the first couple of corners of the track now. As we've got 5.5 minutes left of Q2. It's currently Danger David and D. Perez given a Red Bull front row lockout if things are to repeat themselves heading into Q3. And as it stands, it would be Maverick, Tarkangino, Quan, Toxic, and VSM Sandman that are all eliminated from Q2. If Sandman sets a quicker time now and gets himself outside of this elimination, he will actually be pushing his teammate, Tobalinsen, into the elimination zone. So, a lot of risk now for Ferrari, as one is the driver at risk, the other one is set to be eliminated. VSM Sandman, however, has headed into the pits. Around 1:40 is the time that people need to be looking at to leave themselves if they are going back out on track. But VSM Sandman looks like he's going to be in a bit of a chock-a-block track when he does decide to come back out. As we're on Toxic CZ10, heading in towards the bridge now. 1 minute 19 he's on at the minute. 1 minute 37.6 is the time to beat to get himself on pole position. 1 minute 40.9 is the time to beat, should I say, to get himself into the top 10, and that gets him through into the shootout session. He's going into the DRS detection zone. About to go onto the pit straight. I think he might get a little bit of DRS before he goes across the checkered flag line. He is going to get it, and he's going to get himself 11th quickest. So 1:41.169 pushes him only to 11th place at the moment. Still eliminates him from the second qualifying session. Maverick in 12th place, Tarkangino in 13th, and Quan down in 14th. But Quan is out on an outlap at the moment. We've got quite a few cars out on track at the moment, and we'll be joined by more now towards the front of the grid, namely T-Bran 1. So we're going to jump on board with Tobalinsen, who is taking things slow now, heading through Sector 2 in towards Sector 3, just about to start. Now starts Sector 3. He's on a timed lap as well, so it's interesting to see just what he decides to do at the end of this lap. We've seen his teammate box multiple times from timed laps, so we'll see what the Ferrari's decision is as a team and as a unit to try and put that pressure on the domination that Red Bull are showing as a team at the front at the moment. We've got Mercedes sat in 3rd and 6th place at the moment. The Alfa Romeos in 4th and 11th place. Alpine, of course, in 5th place of Martin Hunt. His teammate was eliminated in the first qualifying session. Formula 1 Farah making his way through into Q3 at the moment, while his teammate is sat down in 14th, but he's out on an outlap at the moment. We've got Skid Solo in the Aston Martin. His teammate was also eliminated in the first qualifying session. He's in 9th place at the moment. And then Osebo with his teammate down in 12th place. One, of course, at risk if a couple of drivers better their time. The other one currently set to be eliminated. We're on board now. We're going to jump to, I think we're going to jump onto board with Maverick, who is heading round on a steady lap himself. This is also set to be a timed lap. I'm just waiting for the time to come back up. 2 minutes 21 left, so not really much time for cars to be able to head back into the pits and change their tyres. But Maverick isn't going to do that. He's going to stay out. He's going to take that corner smoothly, open DRS up nicely, and head into the first corner. His time that lap was 16 seconds slower than the last time that he'd just set. So a 1:42.1 is his best. A 1:40.9 is the time to beat to get himself through into Q3. A 1:37.6 is the time to beat to get himself onto pole position. But as it stands, he is down in 12th place. Quan is in 14th place in the Williams. The other driver that is out on track at the moment, Toxic CZ10, and sat in 15th place at the moment is VSM Sandman with no room for error as he's making his way through Sector 1 as we speak at the moment. We're going to jump across to VSM Sandman to see just what that first sector time shows us, and it is a purple Sector 1 on 27.25 is the time that he's set through Sector 1. Danger David, D. Perez, T-Bran all happy with their times. They're going to hope that their times see them through into Q3, and barring a miracle, I think that's exactly what it's going to do. Tobelenzen has gone in 10th place, hoping that nobody below him manages to set a better time. If they do, he will fall out of qualifying and will start wherever his time sets him in this qualifying session. So VSM Sandman coming up towards the end of Q2. We'll let you know as he passes one of the Mercedes. At the end of Q2, he sets another purple sector, so we'll quickly jump back on board with Maverick, who's about to go under the tunnel. He's got to be a time of 1:40.9 to get himself outside of this elimination zone. He's taking those quick S corners nicely, heading into the DRS detection zone for the Sector 3. Goes round onto the pit straight at 1:37.6, the time to beat to get provisional pole. He's going to set at 1:42.5. That keeps him in 12th place, so we'll quickly jump back across to VSM Salmon. He's got Kwan just in front of him, trying to beat a 1:42.3. As VSM Salmon goes round with a 1:37.6, the time to beat. He hits a 1:38.2, which is quicker than the time that he got at the end of Q1, but it puts him second at the moment and comfortably through into Q3 as we get ready for the checkered flag on multiple of these cars. Maverick's going to settle with the time that he got. He's out. Tobelinzen is out. We've got Tarkangino and Kwan also out. I'm going to jump on board with Skid Solo, who's got an opportunity. If he can beat his time here, he's going quicker than his fastest time at the moment. Is it going to be enough to get him outside of the elimination zone? If he keeps up the pace, he's just had through Sector 2. It is certainly going to do that, but he's headed into the pits, which means he is going to be out. He's not going to make it through into Q3. That's elimination from the session for Skid Solo. So those are your drivers eliminated. Skid Solo won in the Aston Martin, joins his teammate out of Q3. We've got Tobelinzen in 12th place on his debut with Ferrari. Maverick in 13th place. We've got Tarkangino in 14th place. And Kwan down in 15th place as we are on board with Formula 1 Farah, who heads his way into the pits. As we've got just one car going beside him there to set a quicker time. They're hoping so, and it's not the case. It's going to be those 5 eliminated, and we wait for the time remaining to run out to allow us to go through to the third and final qualifying session here in Singapore. We do have a 50% race following this as well, but it is currently Danger David out in first place on a 1:37.6. I want to give a shout out to RSO121 on a 1:37.8. That is a fantastic time to set to put yourself up into second place. We are on board with Quincy at the moment. He's going round through the tunnel into the final couple of corners onto the pit straight to see if he can better his time as well. Try and compete up there with the time that his teammate has set. His teammate set a 1:37.8. He's going to set a 1:39.6. It moves him up slightly into 7th place to end Q2. So it's Danger David, RSO121, VSM Sandman, D Perez, Martin Hunt, T-Brand, Quincy, Toxic CZ10, the No Sabo, and Formula 1 Farah, who all make their way through to the third and final qualifying session. So there's your confirmation of your 10 drivers that have made it through into the final qualifying session. And we've got 2 Red Bulls, we've got a Ferrari, we've got a McLaren, we've got 2 Alfa Romeos, we've got 2 Mercedes, we've got an Alpine, and we've got a Williams, all making their way through to the third and final qualifying session of race 5 of 8, should I say, of the All Assists Off League. We'll be joined back by Skin just in time for the race to get things underway. No formation lap. Remember, today we've had the chaos that EA brings us every time there's a formation lap. It means we have to worry about people being kicked from the session, disqualifications, everything else that EA tends to bring us. So as it stands at the moment, we don't have to worry about that with no formation lap. We've got full qualifying followed by a 50% race. Skin, when you are back, just interrupt me and let me know. It's absolutely fine. As we go into the third and final qualifying session, everybody out on soft tyres in that last one, and we are now in the shootout. 12 minutes to set the quickest time you can. the time allowed is just getting lower and lower, which puts the pressure even more on VSM Sandman. But I think it's something that he thrives under, if that's not been proven already. So we are going to jump on board with the first couple of drivers that are out there at the moment. Once again, it is going to be Martin Hunt and Quincy. The same two that started us off at the beginning of the first and second qualifying sessions are going to do the exact same in the third, and they're both going to be hoping that they're going to be the two that sets us off at the beginning of the race. We are on board with F1 Martin Hunt, who is going to be the first one to cross the line and set us a time, but of course at the moment is out on an out lap. Very impressive from him so far in this, and RS0121 both throughout the qualifying sessions. I think have put in very impressive times to compete with some of the bigger names that we see at the top of the grid. Of course, Danger David, the current championship leader, with a chance to extend that lead with the absence of AMS Johnsy, and of course VSM Sandman with that opportunity to close the gap on Danger David with a good race himself, if not take first place away from him, again with the absence of AMS Johnsy, who seems to have upset that front row grid that we've seen between Danger David and VSM Sandman so far throughout this season. Out laps for everybody at the moment then, and we've got a little bit of space between Martin Hunt and Quincy and the next nearest driver, which I believe is Formula 1 Farah at the moment. So we are going to stay on board with F1 Martin Hunt as he goes through Sector 2. Of course, no times of purple, green or red at the moment as he's just out on an out lap. And it's taken nearly 2 minutes for drivers to get themselves around this track for an out lap. So it raises the question of just how late you can leave it later on in the session if you decide to throw yourself back out there with a last chance saloon to get yourself higher up the grid. Of course, where everybody finishes this qualifying session is where they're going to start the race in around about 15 minutes time. Round onto the pit straight then, we ride on board with Martin Hunt of the Alpine. The two Alpines have been very competitive so far this season, to say the very least, after finishing fourth place last season, very close with the Aston Martins. A nice little battle for third place at the end of season 10. Of course, the end of the F1 22 game era, heading into F1 23. So we are on board with him heading towards the first DRS zone that Singapore gives us. We'll tell you just how he gets on at the end of Sector 1. That is 27.038. Of course, it is a purple sector, as is the first driver to set a time through Sector 1. So we'll just jump on board with Quincy to see his time. And it wasn't purple, so it remains with Martin Hunt as it stands at the moment, as he's making his way through comfortably the streets of Singapore. We've got more drivers now out on timed laps, so it's all guns blazing at the moment with the Alpine of F1 Martin Hunt. His teammate went out in the first qualifying session, which puts a little bit more pressure on him as a teammate to try and get the points on the board for his team. Purple, of course, in Sector 2, so we'll jump on board with Quincy to see the time that he can set through Sector 2, and it's a 1 minute 6.197. Through Sector 2, not purple, so we expect him to finish, unless he's going to have a monster third sector. We expect him to start the session behind Martin Hunt after they've both set a timed lap. As onto the pit straight goes F1 Martin Hunt. He heads in to the pits. He's not happy with the time that he would have been set. As Quincy, we see just what he decides to do as well. He stays out going on to the pit straight, so he's going to set us the first time of the qualifying session. The time to beat is 1:39.612 as we now jump on board with Formula 1 Farah, who I believe is going to be the next to cross the line. His time to beat is 1:39.6 set by Quincy. Martin Hunt, the only driver now into the pits, opens up the DRS nice and early, sets a 1:39.2. So he beats the time set by Quincy as we now move across to see the time of VSM Sandman, who this time stays out on track and sets a 1:37.7 as the time to beat. We've now got the two Red Bulls. We'll start with Danger David. He knows that his nearest and dearest is 1:37.7 to beat, and he gets a 1:37.8, which puts him in second place. Can his teammate better that? He gets a 1:38.8, so nearly a full second. In fact, it is a full second behind his teammate Danger David, which puts Red Bull on the second row of the grid with D. Perez Danger David in second place overall. We'll jump on board with T-Ban, who I believe is going to head in towards the pits now. So let's move ourselves across to the No Sabo, who had a bit of a slow moment going through Sector 3. I don't think the time that he's going to be is going to be that competitive. In fact, it isn't. He's already going slower than the time of Quincy and Formula 1 Farah. So I think he's going to head into the pits as well. So after all cars have been out on the track, we've got VSM Sandman on provisional pole, and it is very, very close between him and Danger David. D. Perez in third place, Toxic CZ10 in fourth, Formula 1 Farah in fifth, Quincy in sixth, and that ends the drivers that have been out and set a time, which means T-Brand 1, RS0121 and the Nosebo, and of course Martin Hunt are all out there set to set a time at the moment. But Martin Hunt heading into the pits, he now is set to have a full track ahead of him, as we see the cars that are still out there at the moment having set their times, more than likely heading back into the pits. So it's just a case of when the Nosebo, RS0121 and T-Brand are likely to rejoin the track. But as it stands, he's heading through Sector 2 with a time to beat of 1:37.7. I think he got a time around that in the second qualifying session. So it would be very interesting to see what he opts to go for in this session here. Everybody out on soft tyres. In the first qualifying session, we saw a mix of soft and medium. The second qualifying session, it was all out on soft tyres. Now, I don't know if it's the graphics of this game, but it looks like those tyres that Martin Hunt is using at the moment have been used before. So it's an interesting strategy if it is the one that he's gone to go for. As we see on the bottom right, the Nosebo leaving the pit lane at the moment, heading out onto track for his outlap, as Martin Hunt is on his way across the line to start his timed lap as well. He's got a nice little distance between him and the Nosebo, and the Nosebo has almost a full track ahead of him. Absolutely clear. So we'll see what RS0121 and T-Brand can do. RS, of course, setting the time that put him second place at the end of Q2. He's on his way out now onto track, so he'll be on an outlap in just a moment's time. His teammate was the first one to set a time of 1:39.6, and that time currently leaves him in sixth place at the moment, as we remain on board with Martin Hunt, who sets 27.083 at the end of Sector 1. It's not purple, but it is impressive as he makes his way in and around the corners of Sector 2. He seems to be, of course, closing the gap on the Nosebo, who is heading in towards a DRS zone at the moment. It's interesting to see if he chooses to use DRS heading into a DRS zone on an outlap. So we'll jump on board with the Nosebo as he makes his way through a couple more twists and turns. He seems to be gaining a bit of distance now from Martin Hunt, as we are joined by T-Brand out on track at the moment doing an outlap, and Quincy does so as well, as Martin Hunt sets purple in Sector 2. And what a statement this could be if the Alpine can put his car on the front row of the grid, upsetting either Sandman or Danger David, the two that have been neck and neck over the last couple of years. Is there a chance that that rhythm could be pushed out the window? The status quo ended here in Singapore, as Martin Hunt makes his way under the bridge, heads out onto the pit straight with the DRS assistance. We'll see if he can beat the time of 1:37.7. He sets a 1:38.4, which splits the Red Bulls and puts him ahead of D. Perez on the second row of the grid. So we'll jump on board with the Nosebo, who is out on a timed lap at the moment. He's the only one out there on a timed lap at the moment, but the Alpine puts himself in third place. So a big statement from Martin Hunt. We've still got quite a few cars out there to set times at the moment, as we do have a yellow flag in Sector 1. That is more than likely going to be a driver moving to one side. 3 minutes left to go in the third qualifying session. It is now or never for some of these drivers that are remaining inside the pits, as Danger David and D. Perez both make their way back out onto track and are out on outlaps at the moment. And I think it's only a matter of time, and it is. VSM Sandman is back out there at the moment as well. Toxic set his time to put him up into fifth place. His teammate T-Brand is out on a timed lap at the moment. We'll jump on board with him in just a few moments' time as we wait to see the conclusion of the McLaren and Nosebo's lap, as Sector 2 just seems to be the home of fastest lap after fastest lap, as now it is the turn of the Nosebo to set a purple Sector 2. He makes his way comfortably through the corners of Sector 3, heading under the bridge. I'm not quite sure of the name of the corner, so if that's what you're hoping for, I'd quit now because I haven't got a clue of most of these, but we'll create a name for some of them throughout the course of the race, I'm pretty sure. As he's heading round onto the pit straight now, 1:37.7 is the time to beat to take VSM Sandman off provisional pole. He hits a 1:41.5. Despite that purple sector 2, he will start at the moment in at best 8th place. He doesn't have time to get himself back round there, so he either continues pushing them tyres or he accepts what it is and starts 8th place at best. We're on board now with T-Brand, but everybody who's out there at the moment, this is their last chance, you dare say. And I think we are going to say that is it for Martin Hunt. He's in the pits. He's taking 3rd place at best at the moment as we stay on board with T-Brand, currently sat in 9th place. He did not set a purple sector 2, so we'll see just how his time in sector 3 matches up. His teammate is out on track at the moment, just a little bit further behind him, but he is out on an outlap at the moment, so T-Brand will probably have to set this time and move to one side. As you see just ahead, VSM Sandman moving to one side to allow T-Brand to make his way through out onto the pit straight. We will see 1:37.7, if you haven't heard already, is the time for him to beat. He sets a 1:39.7, which moves him up into 8th place and the McLaren down into 9th. So let's see just where we've got a couple of drivers out here setting timed laps as VSM Sandman makes his way across the checkered flag to start his time lap. Formula 1 Farah out on an outlap and RS0121 out on outlaps as it stands at the moment. The Mercedes of RS0121 just passes the pit straight to get himself out onto a timed lap. The only driver on track at the moment that hasn't set a timed lap. So it's one-shot qualifying for him. It's worked in the past with VSM Sandman. We'll see just how it does for RS0121. Who got himself into 3rd place at the end of the second qualifying session. Formula 1 Ferrari is out on a timed lap at the moment. In fact, everybody out on timed lap. Everyone out on track is on time laps at the moment. So we'll jump on board with D. Perez, who is the first to cross the line of the 2 Red Bulls. He's managed to get himself in 3rd place with his last lap. That's pushed him down to 4th place now since the Alpine set a better time. So we'll see, heading on to the pit straight, what he decides to do. He goes into the pits and he's accepting 4th is the best that he's going to get. Danger David is going to accept that he will not be getting pole position in Singapore, as 1:48 is the time that he's got at best. And he's heading himself into the pits now. Takes a little bit of the pressure off VSM Sandman, who is out in 1st place at the moment as RS0121 retires from the session in 10th place. So he will be starting in 10th place without a time set at the end of Q3. We are still on board with VSM Sandman. Only Formula 1 Farah can upset that front row at the moment. VSM Sandman, of course, can better that time. He does so with a 1:37.775, 5 thousandths of a second quicker than his last lap. As we jump on board with Formula 1 Farah to see just what he can do. He is going quicker than the time he set before as he's going through Sector 3. It's not quite a time that will compete with VSM Sandman, but it is a time that will push him at the very least above Toxic, and if he can have a good 3rd sector as well, potentially even the Red Bull of D. Perez. You can see on the left hand side now the checkered flag is out for multiple of these drivers. If not, they're the ones that are sat in the pit or they've retired from this session as Formula 1 Farah goes round onto the pit straight. 1:37.7 the time to beat. He hits a 1:38.5 and it pushes D. Perez down into 5th place. It means Formula 1 Farah in the Williams will start on the 2nd row of the grid, but it is another pole position for the Ferrari of VSM Sandman as we prepare for a 50% lap race in just a moment's time. Skin, are you back?
Yes, mate, I'm here. You alright?
I am, mate. Yeah, I've got high blood pressure. I've got voice hurting and everything after that. So VSM Sandman takes back pole position. I'll let you give us a bit of a breakdown of what you got to witness during that.
I mean, it was pretty standard for what we've seen across the 3 sessions, really. Very, very close there for pole. What's that, 300th of a second separating Danger David and Sandman. But we're kind of in the position now that we were in back end of last season, where Sandman gets pole, comfortably wins, and Danger David starts 2nd, drops down the track and has to work his way back up. It's what I've spoken about many a times in the races over the last few weeks. So will we get the same again today? Or, for once, can Danger David avoid contact in that first corner or two, stay on track, and really push? Because that's what I want to see. I want to see an out-and-out race, an out-and-out war between the driver that's won the last 3 championships and the driver that's currently leading this one. It's Sandman versus Danger David. It's a battle of the heavyweights. I want to see that lap one until the end. What I don't want to see again is another incident where we end up having to watch the same thing. Then that allows Sandman to get off in the distance and claim a comfortable victory. But who knows what can happen between now and, let's say, about 9:30 UK time. Be about 45 minutes, 50 minutes in terms of racing time, 50% as you mentioned there. So in terms of the layout, in terms of the starting grid, it's not too different from what we're used to seeing. I'm just hoping for a bit of a different outcome when it comes to race day. And like I say, I really, really want to see that heavyweight battle between Sandman and Danger David. But based on evidence, based on history, based on what we've seen in the past, based on the starting grid today, it's hard to see anyone but Sandman winning. But you never know. Danger David is leading the championship as it stands. I'm sure he's going to want to keep hold of that. So it should be a good race.
Hopefully will be the case. And of course, with no formation lap, we are just a few moments away from seeing the race get underway. Drivers just perfecting the strategy, heading into Singapore. I expect to see mixed strategies across the board. Some of the drivers that were unfortunate not to make it through these long qualifying sessions, many different tyres have been used, which makes the strategy very different. And the lights are out and we are underway with, of course, no formation lap, and we are on board with VSM Salmon, who gets a very nice start. Danger David, very slow start though, and it allows Martin Hunt to make it past him in the case of the first corner. D. Perez though made his way up very nicely before taking a bit of an incident. I think he's dropped somewhat down the grid as well, so Skin, I'll be finding out from you in just a moment's time, as well as he got an overtake that then fell a little bit further back. But it's Martin Hunt who gets the nicest start, heading past Danger David into second place. No collision made, and VSM Sandman stands out in first place at the moment as we look towards where any other overtakes may be taking place down the track. And we'll go on board with D. Perez. Did you see any incident that saw him fall down? Because he'd got himself up to fourth at one point, and then he fell back down to sixth.
Yeah, it was just contact between him and 2 seconds. Let me just double check.
We're on a virtual safety car, just to be clear, at the moment. That's why everyone's taking their time. There's no rushing overtakes, because on the first couple of corners we've had a couple of incidents that leaves us at this point with a virtual safety car.
Yeah, it was formal award at Farah. A bit of contact, nothing major, just two people battling to find the line going into the next corner. And D. Perez just ended up spinning from it, but I'd call that a racing incident personally.
Okay, I just want to give a shout out as well to Trugster, who of course was disqualified during the first qualifying session, and after a couple of corners he's made his way from 18th up into 13th place, so that is a fantastic start from him. We are back racing though, with 31 laps under our belt to go here in Singapore, and of course the bright lights and the dark nights of Singapore give us much more excitement, with VSM Sandman out in first on the medium tyres, Martin Hunt in second, with Danger David currently sat in third place. We've then got the soft tyres of Formula 1 Farah and Quincy. Interesting strategy from both of those to go for, as VSM Sandman sets the fastest lap of 1:57.4. Expect that to be beaten very, very shortly. VSM Sandman, we're jumping on board, with Quincy at the moment in fourth place in the Mercedes. He's less than a second behind Danger David, but of course we don't get DRS for another couple of laps. The Nocebo on hard tyres has boxed, so when you start on hard tyres and you've got a pit, it throws chaos in the air, doesn't it? Because you expect those hard tyres to be saved for later on if there's any incident. And he's moved himself onto medium tyres with an expectancy, if you'd probably say, around about 15 laps. So he's still going to have to pit one more time, but it now puts him some distance behind Sir Ibo in the Haas to try and close that gap a little bit down the line. So the strategy that he's gone for of the hard tyres hasn't paid off, Skin.
Definitely, mate. Just on board with D. Perez now, looking to claim that fifth place back. But again, it's good. It's hard to overtake on these street races. We talk about it all the time. But as I say that, Formula 1 Farah has gone wide on that left turn, which has opened the door. D. Perez back up into fifth place. So good recovery. Quincy will be next on his list. But looking at it, Quincy is not taking that fourth spot and being comfortable with it. He's actually pushing Danger David. It is now around half a second behind him. So quite interesting. Oh, Quincy damaged.
Oh dear.
Complete loss.
Oh dear. And Perez is out.
D. Perez is out.
Oh wow. Quincy's gone.
Car.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We've just been on board with that. Quincy's got a 5-second time penalty. I think that's completely understandable. He's gone wide, gone straight into the wall, and then D. Perez is just, through no fault of his own, tried to take that corner, and he's gone straight into the back of Quincy. That's a bit of a lifeline for Danger David in the fact that Quincy's now fallen away from him, but it's made things tougher in the fact that his teammate is now out of the race, and the advantage that Red Bull could have gained on the fact that there is no Johnsy has just been made so much tougher as we're now under a safety car, which means we are on board with Quincy, who has gone into the pits. He was on soft tyres. He's going to come out on hard tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see just how long those hard tyres last him. And if this is going to be a saving grace for him. Then Osebo, of course, who pitted on lap 1, will probably see the best advantage of this, as he's going to now be allowed to catch up with the safety car. And it is going to be the time setter is VSM Sandman out in first place at the moment. So after 3 laps, we've got our first safety car. I did say there was only going to be 2, so bet a lot of money on the fact there's going to be 12. Now, there's a safety car, and on lap 1, we had a virtual safety car. So we're already on the 2 limit that I set, and we've still got a good 28 laps left to go. Sandman out in first place. F1 Martin Hunt in second. Danger David in third place. Formula 1 Farah in fourth. Toxic in the Alfa Romeo in fifth place. Toblizine in 6th, Maverick in 7th, RS012 in 8th, Quan in 9th, Trugster up into 10th place. Fantastic climb from him, starting in 18th place in this. In the 3 laps in, has been brought closer to the group, but he's also up into 10th place in the Alpha Tauri, and it has been a fantastic climb for him as well. Last couple of races, I think he was close to winning Driver of the Day over the last couple of weeks as well, and deservedly so, but to be down up in 10th place after just 3 laps and now bunched together with everybody else, I think he's a favourite of mine to go up and get himself onto the podium. If he's listening, I hope he doesn't take pressure from that. T-Bran in 11th place, Racing Wheel down in 12th, Skid Solo and the Aston Martin in 13th place, Cerribo in 14th, Tarkan Gino in 15th, Quincy in 16th, then Osebo in 17th, and the first casualty that Singapore has to offer is that of the Red Bull of D. Perez, who, the last time there was no Johnsy, won a race. This time there's no Johnsy. He isn't even going to finish the race. So, plenty of different strategies in and amongst the drivers. We've still got Formula 1 Farah and Tobliansen in soft tyres. Nobody pitting at the moment and taking advantage of this safety car. I did tell Skinner I'd give him a little bit of a break whilst I take us through the next couple of laps, but I didn't expect a safety car to put that to a break. So, Skin, I am going to ask you about the strategies that drivers have gone for and the decisions not to pit. So they're obviously favouring track position over the pit stops. Is that a brave choice or a smart choice in your opinion?
Hard to say. They've surprised me quite a bit with the approach, because we've always took whenever we've played, we've always took the mindset of if safety car comes out, you pit, regardless really of when that is, even if it is at the end of the first lap. You see in the actual Formula 1 as well that teams like to take advantage. So, having watched a few of these races now, I am always quite surprised that teams don't take advantage of pitting under the safety car. I'd like some insight as to why that is, whether it's they don't want to drop down the grid, but you're going to expect that anyway. So it does seem that they seem to take a different approach to what we're used to doing, and certainly what they do on an actual Formula 1 track as well. What do you think the advantages are of not pitting under the safety car, where historically you would assume that's the best time, because you're not losing out as much time?
I don't think I've seen a race yet where only one pit stop has been done by drivers. I think most of the races we've covered have required more than one pit stop. And I don't know if that's down to damage that cars have received. I don't know whether that's down to manual tyre wear, of course. With All Assist Soft, they're responsible for that kind of thing themselves. I'm not quite sure. But the strategies I think they've got to go for is they're not pitting now because the tyres can last a little bit longer. And hell, it's Singapore. There's chances that there's going to be another incident at some point, isn't there? And if that happens, maybe you're going to pit at that point. So I'm not sure. I personally, if I started on the soft tyres, which I always tend to do because I know how clumsy you can be, I tend to start on the soft tyres. I tend to start on the soft tyres and pit. And then from there, when of course you've made that collision or somebody's made that collision, I'll pit and move on to the hard tyres to see me through for the rest of the race. On this occasion, people have started on the hard, started on the mediums, and gone for that longevity straight away to try and get themselves track position to then maybe pit off the back of it. And that's where you look to like Maverick, RS, Trugster, T-Brand, Racing Wheel and Skid Solo, and maybe even Quincy in, 15 laps time to see just where that works for them, as we are getting ourselves ready. And it is VSM Salman that will be the pace setter, and he gets us round the corner, and we are back racing once again here in Singapore, and that took an extra 52 seconds to take us around the track of Singapore. Of course, with VSM Salman out in first place, I think we've got another lap until we get to see DRS, and that's where most of the overtakes will be made. It is Martin Hunt in second place, and it's important for me, in this opinion, for Danger David to get past him as soon as possible, because if Martin Hunt is going to be holding up at any point, Danger David is going to be backed into the likes of Formula 1 Fire and Toxic, and there's going to be a DRS train there, and that's going to make it very difficult for him to get past as well. The person that's really going to struggle with that is Martin Hunt, of course. Everyone behind him is going to have DRS. He is not, because Sandman is pushing further and further away, and this is the shades of the old Sandman that we saw that was dominant for so long, and of course is the consecutive three-time, should I say, world champion and the current defending champion. So we'll see just where this puts him at the end of the race. But he currently, on a couple of laps in, half the track in fact, has a 2-second lead over Martin Hunt in second place in the Williams. As we've just seen another car go wide there, it was Formula 1 Farah. Sorry, Martin Hunt's the Alpine. The Formula 1 Farah in Williams went wide, but he's managed to hold his position with Toxic just behind him. But that is very close, and we'll stay on board with Toxic, who goes up onto the inside. He's going to have the outside line onto the next corner. He's going to have the inside line on this one, and he smoothly takes that overtake off Formula 1 Farah, who's gone a little bit wide and tries to regain his position. And I think it is going to be Toxic that walks out with that position up into fourth place. And the Ferrari of Toblinson is just behind Formula 1 Farah. Now he's putting pressure on the Williams driver, but that is some class racing between Toxic and Formula 1 Farah, who went wide on a couple of occasions, but didn't rush back onto the track and cause a collision, was very composed in it and battled quite nicely against the Alfa Romeo. But we are on board with Formula 1 Farah at the moment, who is on the soft tyres, and you'd expect pushing at Toxic in just a couple of laps' time when those soft tyres are really at their peak heat, shall we say. Behind him is the Ferrari on soft tyres as well, whose teammate has just set the fastest lap. But now there is a 3-second, nearly 4-second gap between Toxic in fourth place and Danger David in third. So that little battle has allowed the Red Bull to push himself further away from the train that was, as we have a yellow flag at the moment, and I think it is Kwan who had the yellow flag, but he seems to have sorted his situation out. It is not him, it is in fact Skid Solo, and we're going to jump on board with Skid Solo, who went wide heading through Sector 1. He's back on track, and it doesn't look like he's got any damage either, so he's going to be good to carry on those hard tyres in the Aston Martin. But it does mean he has fallen down into 17th place for the time being, as we jump on board with Danger David, who is now just behind F1 Martin Hunt, and he is in touching distance to get past him as well. DRS could make all the difference when it is enabled, I believe, at the end of this lap, with the Red Bull currently sat in third place. Less than half a second separates the two, and he looked like he was about to go for an overtake there, but didn't want to risk it going under the tunnel. And we prepare ourselves to finish lap 6, start lap 7, and introduce what I hope is the drag reduction system, which adds an extra 10 miles per hour, of course, to the back of the cars. And if you haven't heard that 20 times within a race on a Sunday evening, we'll mention it a couple of times more for you here on a Monday evening as well, as he opens up DRS onto the pit straight. Not quite long enough, though, for him, but he is within touching distance, and if he can get DRS open in the next couple of corners and opportunities, there's a chance he will go. Oh, he has gone ahead of Martin Hunt. It didn't look like he'd gone ahead of him there. The camera angle it showed me looked like he was stuck behind him, but he's managed to get ahead of him into second place. I've done a U from last week where we've missed the overtake.
Not so funny now, is it?
Oh, mate, it can happen to the best of us, that's just proven. Right, we're going to jump...
The worst of us, as proven last week.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as saying the worst, but we're with RS0121, who now, he looked like he'd nearly taken a bit of a bang there from T. Brannan to the back, but he's managed to avoid any sort of collision, as he's just behind Maverick. And I think it's the fact that these drivers know what they're doing, but they're getting very, very close. Whereas for me, I have to break a corner before the next corner, don't I, just to make sure I can take it comfortably. So when these get very close, it gets me on edge a little bit, thinking there's a chance that there's going to be a bit of a collision. But we are on board with RS0121 to give us the view of him trying to get past the McLaren of Maverick in the battle for 7th place. As going wide just there was T-Bran, and I think he's taken a bit of a collision. He has. He's lost a bit of his front wing there, and I think, is that the same corner where we saw Quincy go off as well, and the
No, the Quincy one was going into the bridge.
Was it going into the bridge? Right, okay. I thought that was the same corner then where Di Perez went out of the race, but T-Brand's taking a bit of wing damage, and it means that he might have to pit momentarily as well, which allowed Truxter to move up another position. I didn't get to hear your opinion of Truxter's start to the race, because a couple of laps ago when the safety car came out, he'd moved himself up into 10th place, and he was still on the hard tyres that started the race for him, so he's still fighting with his strategy, and he managed to make 8 places in 8 laps.
Yeah, great start. I was just on board there between him and Kwan. About a lap or so ago, really good battle for that 10th spot. T-Bran has now joined that. Kwan ended up going very slowly into a corner, which meant Truxter managed to take a lead. Just got half an eye on the back of the grid at the moment. A bit of a 3-way battle between Racing Wheel, No Sabo and Tarkin Gino. A bit of collision there as well. Means Racing Wheels had to go off track, potentially open the door for the No Sabo, but managed to keep hold of 13th place for now. Looking at up and down the rest of the grid, RS0121 is having a little look at Maverick in 7th, but not in a position where I can overtake at the moment. But I suppose the headline, as we said at the start of the race, Sandman 6 seconds ahead after 8 laps, after a safety car bunching them all back up together as well. Over a 6-second lead. I mean, you know, when he wakes up in the morning and what's his name? I can't remember his name. Isn't racing that week. He's got to be licking his lips and having a bit of a spring in his step as he gets up in the morning, because it's total domination yet again.
It's AMS Johnsy.
Johnsy, that was it.
That's the guy you're thinking of.
Remember, if you watch it, mate, or you listen back, I apologise. Johnsy it is. But
sorry, mate. He's only won every race that he's been in.
Yeah, well, Sandman's won every race that he's not been in, and that's
no, he hasn't.
So.
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Perez won it last time.
I've watched. Every race that I've watched that Johnsy's not been in, Sandman's won.
All right, okay,
which is more than the amount of races that Johnsy's won, so is what it is. But yeah, over 6 seconds ahead, what can you say?
Yeah, it's just dominant again, isn't it, from Sandman and Danger David in 2nd place. I think it's tough because he's been consistent throughout, and Sandman's had those little tough moments where he's ended up down in 7th and 8th place, and he had a race earlier on in the season where his strategy really didn't help him, and it led to him falling even further down. But his teammate's doing some work at the moment on Formula 1 Faro, going on to the outside. Formula 1 Faro defends well in the battle for 5th place. We head through Sector 1, and this time it's going to be with ease and the DRS that allows Tobelenzen. I'm going to go with Tobelenzen to take 5th place away from him on those soft tyres, and I don't think you're going to have too much longer left before those soft tyres are going to be worn and torn, and you're going to have to look at pitting. So it's would you maybe go for hard tyres to see you through? Get yourself those soft tyres to get track position, then box for the hard tyres, and just try and make sure that when everyone else is pitting, you've kind of got that advantage?
Seems like the best way to go in terms of if you want in a one-stop strategy. You do have to be mindful of safety cars coming into play. Tobelenzen, after that great climb, gone very, very wide into a corner stop. Don't think he took damage. I think managed to get the brakes on, but has allowed RS0121 and Maverick to overtake him.
Oh, wow, that was interesting.
Now there's a bit of a bunch. Go on, sorry.
I was on board with RS0121. Is that what you was about to say?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a nice little bunch for that 5th place at the moment now.
Yeah, well, it was sat with, of course, Formula 1 Faro, and as he went to take that corner, RS0121, he slammed on the brakes, he got the position and slammed on the brakes on the straight after he'd taken that corner, and then moved away, obviously, very slowly. So I don't know if he changed gear too early or a little bit too late or what it was, but he seemed a little bit stuck, and he lost the position back to Formula 1 Faro. But now he's got DRS here, and Maverick's got it just behind him, but he's got the outside line, which means it's advantage for Formula 1 Faro. But on the inside line now, I'm not sure if that counts as a bit of a corner cut, as he stays on the outside line going past Formula 1 Faro into 5th place, takes it comfortably and holds the position heading through Sector 1 as we go into the next DRS zone. This time it's going to be DRS with both Maverick and with Formula 1 Faro, so it's defending work for the Mercedes, and I think the straight isn't going to quite be long enough to prove too much of a threat to him. Sorry for interrupting you now. I'll head back towards you.
Right, mate, I was going to put myself. Yeah. At the moment, not really too much happening. I think your prediction of 2 safety cars could be on something. They've only had 1. Now,
We're not counting the virtual?
Nah, we don't count the virtuals. It's full safety car or nothing in it. But yeah, third of the way through the race, Sandman now 8 seconds ahead. Danger David very comfortable in his own right, his second, 6 seconds ahead of Martin Hunt, as Maverick looks to take 6th spot. And will do it very good. Did well to get the inside line into that corner, really powerful straight. Oh! Maverick is out. Maverick is out as on board Formula One Farah. Oh, I don't know. I feel like he's gone in with a bit too much speed into that corner there. Maverick has put the brakes on. He's got it in the back and sent into the corner, so he is out. Did you manage to catch that there, Adam?
I was on board with I was on board with RSO121 throughout that, and I think the three of them were always, like, for the last couple of laps, have been flirting with collisions, haven't they? As a late decision from RSO121 to stay out on track. Everyone else has pitted onto these hard tyres, and he stayed out. He was going into the pits, and he cut across right at the last minute to get himself back out on track. So he might have seen that everyone else has pitted, and he's chosen to stay out. But at the moment, him and Truckster sat in 2nd and 3rd place, as separating VSM Sandman from Danger David. So Danger David, instead of having that quick attack on Sandman, it's going to be difficult for him now.
Yeah, it's going to throw up, as there's a bit of almost contact there. Quincy coming round, he's on hard tyres, so no need to pit. Martin Hunt was coming out of the pits. There's almost a collision going into the 2nd or 3rd corner there, but Quincy has gone up into 5th. I'm just looking, the top 7 all have hard tyres on, so potentially no need for any of them to pit for the rest of the race, unless they obviously take on damage or anything like that. So could the 7 as they are at the moment, could that be how the grid is laid out by the time we finish that 31st lap? I'm just looking now. Yeah, like you say, RS and Truckster have managed to move up phenomenal from Truckster after having to start from 18th after that error in qualifying or glitch or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's your second safety car, mate. I was
Talk us through that.
I am on board for all the incidents now. Talking Gino is just going round, left turn coming up, he's just edged his car right, nudged it right just to get the right line, and his car has been thrown long to the wall on the right hand side. He's lost his front right, and there's another, in the space of a lap, that is another driver that is out due to contact with a wall going into a corner. Yeah, just, I said left hand turn, he's edged right, nudged the car right just to get the right line. I don't know what's happened, but he's got thrown into the wall at great speed. Looked like faster speed than what he was going at the time due to the safety car, but Tarkin Gino is out for the AlphaTauri. So, I mean, based on what's happening at the minute over the last couple of laps, anything can happen.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? We were talking about that when you said about only one safety car coming out, and then, of course, the next safety car comes out, that there might have been an 8-second lead for Sandman, but an innocent decision to just move right a little bit could prove all the difference. And when you pit onto these tyres, on all assists off, you've got to make sure that you're the one that's heating them tyres up, aren't you? Like, for us, sometimes in generic leagues, you usually get to see that people are going to come back out onto these tyres, and the car itself heats them up just because of how the settings are set. For all assists off, you've got to get them heat into the tyres yourself. And when you're under a safety car on these new tyres, that job is, of course, made so much tougher. And we are on lap 12. We're heading towards halfway through the race. And we've had quite a lot of these cars already pitting under the safety car. So it is interesting to see these different approaches. RSO121, you'd think him and Truxton might have a bit of an advantage. You know, them tyres are quite warm. You've got Sandman out there at the moment on cold, hard tyres that he needs to try and get this grip and try and get this heat behind almost immediately. Otherwise, he's going to be under the pressure from a Mercedes and an AlphaTauri that are both performing admirably well so far throughout the qualifying and now, of course, through the race as well. So it's going to be tough for him to have to defend. It's going to be even tougher for Danger David, who on those cold tyres doesn't just have to defend from Quincy, but he also has to try and pile the pressure on Truckster and RSO121 to be able to get himself past Sandman, or competing, of course, with his closest challenger for the championship at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Just want to, while we're on the safety car, before the action gets back underway and the racing and quest for position resumes, just want to give a shout out to Evo, not racing with us tonight, but he is watching the stream and he's passed on his compliments for the commentary so far. Got to give you credit for that. It has been largely a one-man show, as my plans for the evening have changed about 17 times from the start of qualifying, and I also had to fit a bit of food in as well because I'd not eaten, so appreciate that, mate, and full credit to you. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to Evo watching and hope to see you back on the grid soon.
Hopefully so. He's been performing well as well, to be fair. He was my driver of the day a couple of weeks ago. I think he's been performing well, but you get quite a few of these drivers. I mean, we talk about obviously Sandman and Danger David and now AMS Johns as your front runners. Let's not write off RS0121 or Trugster or Evo or Quincy or even Martin Hunt. They've all been performing really well over these last couple of weeks, and you know it throws it up as a bit of excitement for the race a little bit. But we are about to get things back underway, and we'll see if the decision not to pit is going to be a good one for the Mercedes and the AlphaTauri, as VSM Sandman, as the pace setter, goes across the checkered flag to get things back underway. He is the leader, 1.3 seconds currently, and he was very quick onto that pit straight to get himself up into the 8th gear to push himself a bit further ahead of the likes of RS0121 and Trugster. So we're going to jump on board at the moment with Danger David, who is the one that is going to have to try and get past both of those two. The last thing he needs is to be kept behind them in the dirty air on the colder tyres for too long if he's going to put any sort of effort into getting past VSM Sandman. Providing no incidents, you'd like to think that Sandman and Danger David are on these tyres to the very end. There's been an overtake between Toby Enzen and T-Brand, and it looks like there's a battle down in 11th place. Again, I'll come across to you for that in just a moment's time as Danger David goes up onto the inside to try and get past Drugster, who is in 3rd place at the moment. He gets the inside line for the next corner as well, but the DRS just doesn't quite stretch far enough for him, and he nearly collides with Quincy, as this time he goes onto the outside and gets past him and gets the position, and Quincy this time nearly colliding with Trugster. Of course, Danger David now up into 3rd place, and he's got that chance now to try and put the pressure onto RS0121, who's got 2.5 second lead of him at the moment. Skin will come across to you.
I was just on board with Quincy there as you were commentating on it, mate. Quincy, bit hot on the gas going into that corner, almost contact with Danger David. And Martin Hunt as well gave Quincy a little bit of a shunt, but looked like he managed to hit it central on his wing, so I don't think he took any damage. But yeah, some drivers here looking for a podium spot. Very, very eager to make an early and aggressive move coming out of that safety car. Sandman just flown ahead again, 4.2 seconds ahead of RS in 2nd, as Martin Hunt looks to make a move, and Trugster is pitting. I didn't see him take any contact during that lap. If you did at all, Adam, please say, but surprising tactic to pit in the lap after the safety car's gone in and not take advantage of the safety car while it was there.
No, I didn't see any damage for him, but I think it was a decision of, he thought he could maybe be a bit more competitive on those tyres, and it just hasn't seemed to work for him. And as a result of it, he has fallen down, and he just didn't want to risk falling down too far. So he's decided to make that pit stop now as Martin Hunt and Quincy have a bit of a battle. I just stayed on board there for the moment as Danger David took 2nd place away from RS0121. And so we jump on board with Quincy, and there's an incident there, a collision between Quincy and Martin Hunt. I don't know if there's any damage, but going around that corner, Quincy had the inside line, and he's got the outside line now going back round onto the straight. I think there's been a couple of incidents there with Quincy that you've already mentioned yourself, maybe a little bit too hot on the gas, and it's caused an incident there with Martin Hunt, but it looks like no damage as Martin Hunt can continue that pressure. He's taken a spin, and there's a hit there from Toxic, and he's taken quite a spin as well as he's pulling himself down into 9th place at the moment. He's going to try and get himself back onto track facing the right way, and there's been another incident.
It's causing absolute chaos.
This is skin circum Monaco every season as Martin Hunt takes a time penalty and goes into the wall. Trugster now in 15th place tries to get past him. Quincy takes a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. This is safety car number 3 on lap 14 of 31 as Martin Hunt is out, and it gives that decision to pit maybe a bad one for Trugster. If he just waited on that little extra longer, he'd have been able to pit under the safety car and wouldn't have lost as much of a position. But Quincy has a drive-through penalty, which of course can't be served under the safety car. But it is Sandman, it is Danger David, the front 2 drivers in this race. Are we about to see, when this race gets back underway, finally the 2 Goliaths of this track go head to head?
I mean, we keep hoping for it, and it keeps not happening. I'm starting to think if it's a battle that's even possible. It's like dreaming for years that you're going to get Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua in their primes, and it never quite happens. But maybe we're halfway through the race now. Quincy's pitted. We'll still have to save that drive-through penalty, as you mentioned earlier. But yeah, that's what now, 4 safety cars, is it? 3, 4?
This is number 3. 4 if you include in the virtual safety car. But there goes the pit stop now of Racing Wheel, who has fallen himself down into 13th place. Gid Solo, T-Brand, the Nocebo, Toxic, Quincy, and RSO121 all pitting onto medium tyres to try and see them through to the end of this race. It did say the expectation, the life expectancy of those medium tyres is around 15 laps. So we could be onto something, or they could be onto something there. But it does mean Ferrari currently sit, as it stands, with all pit stops needed to be done, in 1st place and 4th place. Now, we touch on the Drivers' Championship quite a lot and how close this is, but let's talk about that Constructors' Championship. Haas, nowhere to be seen at the moment. Red Bull, 2nd place, and the other driver is out. As it stands, Ferrari have a huge opportunity to close that gap. And Williams, they're not too far away either. What's your thoughts on that?
It's probably, as far as I can remember, so again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think from a constructor's standpoint, it's probably the best performance that Ferrari have put on since we started commentating on this league. First, his performances speak for themselves, but I don't remember a time where he's had a teammate that's been as high as 4th as the debutant is currently. And a lot of time to go, we're only halfway through the race, anything can happen. A lot has happened in this first half. Who's to say that a lot more will happen in the second half? But again, I said it earlier, if he comes in and performs, is Sandman going to be pushing for a new permanent teammate? Yes, he'll want that. Yes, he'll want that drivers' championship. But with the dominance of Johnsy, will he have half an eye on that constructors and think, I'm not winning or I'm potentially not winning the drivers' championship because of the other drivers' performance. I'm not going to win the constructors because my teammates haven't been doing their side, which is what you need if you're going to win the constructors. You think he could potentially be having a word and making a push for a new permanent teammate if it means that he's got a shot at the constructors should the drivers fall by the wayside?
Yeah, I think as long as it's not at the expense of the drivers, I think he'd be all for that. I think if it's going to affect his drivers' championship chances, I think that's where you'd probably turn around and say, no, maybe not. But that could be a selfish way of looking at it. As it stands in the drivers' championship, it is Danger David who's the leader, AMS Johnsy in 2nd, and VSM Sandman in 3rd. There's currently 60 points separating VSM Sandman from Danger David, and only 17.5 points separating Johnsy from Danger David. So this is huge. Danger David, of course, would extend his lead over Johnsy at the end of this, but VSM Sandman will almost certainly take 2nd place, if not 1st, if Danger David struggles to hold on to 2nd place on the restart. Of course, Formula 1 Farah and Tobli Enzen both on the quicker medium tyres, same age as Danger David and Sandman's hard tyres, so it could all change, and there is a chance that Ferrari could still get a strong 1-2 out of this as well. Just looking at the constructors' standings at the moment, it is Red Bull leading on 528.5. In 2nd place is Haas, 109 behind, and then it's Ferrari in 3rd on 176. So whilst this is a great race for Williams at the moment, who are currently sat in 3rd and 5th, they're currently sat at the bottom, 388 points behind Red Bull, who are currently leading it. So, is this the turning point for Formula 1 Farah and Kwan? Is this the spark that they need to reignite their season? We are in Canada a couple of weeks' time, then there's Portugal and France to see out the season. So, there's still a long way to go. There's still a chance that, yes, Williams could be competitive, but for me, if this is how it's going to end, Ferrari will make a huge gap, which is currently 176 points, on Red Bull. So, it'd be interesting to see just what happens as we are back underway in just a moment's time, as we wait and see what the decision is. With the safety car heading in, VSM Sandman will be the pace setter for the 3rd time, As he heads round onto the pit straight, he is followed by Danger David shortly behind. Formula One Faro then in third place. Of course, no DRS at the moment. I think that will come at the end of this lap as Toblienza nearly loses out on the position to the Williams of Kwan, who took a sneaky little look on the inside on that first turn. Bear in mind that Quincy does have a drive-through penalty that will have to be served before the conclusion of lap 20 after the safety car disrupted things ever so slightly for us there. So let's jump on board with Formula One Faro, who's putting the pressure a little bit onto the second place Danger David, as the gap between Danger David and Sandman is still around half a second. Kwan has lost the position to Sir Ibo as the Haas starts to continue putting pressure on. Danger David still just behind VSM Sandman. This could be interesting. This is what we wanted to see. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2, and I believe that is Sir Ibo, who's fallen in the Haas down into 13th place, now into 14th place. So Skin, I'll come across to you to see if you saw just what happened there as we stay on board for the next couple of corners at the very least, with Danger David, who's heading his way through, keeping the pressure tough onto his competitor of VSM Sandman in the Ferrari, heading into a DRS zone. Of course, cannot use DRS until at the very least the end of this lap, when race control tell us, yep, you can take the piss and use it again. We're now back on board we'll jump on board quickly with Toxic, as he's the next closest, and he's putting the pressure onto the Williams of Kwan. Skin, did you see what happened to Sir Ibo?
I didn't, mate, unfortunately, so I can't help you on that one. But there is a excuse me, incident on Sector 3. Just tried to go down the track to find it, but haven't been able to. I'm just going to jump back on board with Danger David. Sorry, I was just sort of keeping an half an eye on it on top of the grid coming out of that safety car. Sandman trying to pull away, increase and regain that lead that he had earlier in the race before. This sort of, I mean, I say back-to-back safety cars, they weren't quite, but there wasn't much time between them, was there? So, yeah, Danger David, already a second behind Sandman. I'd love to get some insight into the kind of setups these guys use and that kind of stuff, because it's incredible driving. It's something that I'll never be able to achieve. It does baffle me a little bit. As I just jump on board with the No Sabo to be able to see Toxic move up into 6th place. Again, this is where we found incidents where a couple of drivers have overtaken, a couple of drivers behind them have caught up. That's then led to a little bit of a train, and it only takes one person to go a little bit wide, a little bit slow, a little bit unsure going into a corner, which causes an incident. So, as it stands so far, everyone seems to be relatively comfortable. But I've thought that before, and then 30 seconds later we've had a safety car out on track. Yeah, just with this bunch at the minute, sort of between 7th and 8th, does seem to be the smallest gap on the track. The back two, Quincy and Sir Ibo, miles behind each other and the rest of the track. Sandman nearly 1.5 seconds ahead. Danger David has got a 3-second gap from 3rd. Everyone else, there's a bit of contact there by T-Bran on the No Sabo. The No Sabo did have a little bit of a wobble, but managed to keep control. And David's had multiple warnings as Toxic is back to front on the grid. Unfortunately, he was round the next corner, and it is a safety car. So Danger David has got a 3-second time penalty at the same time that Toxic has ended up facing the wrong way, and it brings out the 4th safety car of the race. There's a couple of drivers there, Danger David and Tobilinson. Bloody hell. Tobby, I'm going to call him Tobby. Are pitting, as are a couple of well. So this is really where strategies can change. Do drivers take the risk of moving on to softs maybe? I'm on board with Toxic still after that spin. These tyres don't look in the best condition, so we'll be interested. Around 13 laps left, some of which will be under safety car, so can manage those tyres, and he is going on to softs as well as changing his front wing. And to be honest, I think quite lucky Toxic will feel at the moment that he's not ended up out of the race. Danger David now down to 7th after that pit, onto mediums with that 3-second time penalty. Surely, I mean, it was looking like it was the case before that safety car, but now it's got to be a Sandman win we're looking at once the race is done.
I don't know, you know. I feel like he's been very unfortunate with that. The safety car has come out as he's gone past the pit entry, so he's missed his chance to pit, and it was instinct and quick response from Danger David that put him into the pits to change himself onto those medium tyres. Now, before the safety car came out, Danger David was within a second of Sandman on equal tyres. Now he's going to be on fresher, quicker tyres. I'm not sure it's going to be in Sandman's favour. You know, if he can get past some of these drivers pretty quickly, or if we see another safety car down the line, I think Danger David's going to be able to put a lot of pressure on the current defending champion. So it was a quick impulse decision, I think, from Danger David. We'll find out, hopefully, after the race, but that depends on whether he's finished in the top three or not. The top three currently stands as Sandman, Formula 1 Farah, and RSO 121. And what a race this has turned out to be for the two Williams. I mean, of course, the safety car reduces the pressure that your tyres need. It allows you to go much slower, and, of course, saves the tyres' life expectancy, of course, and that works for the likes of Formula 1 Farah, who pitted earlier on for them medium tyres, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely. And this is why I was interested to see what tyres Toxic would go on. He did go on to softs. What do you think about that decision? Someone like Danger David that's got to put the pressure on, that struggled to keep up with Sandman in an open race, going on to mediums, or do you think it might have been worth the risk of going onto a soft tyre and really attack the last sort of 9 or 10 laps once the safety car goes in?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was just asking about the decision of what tyres to go on. So Toxic went in. I was interested to see what tyres we would be going on, or he would be going on. Sorry, and he chose softs. I was thinking someone like a Danger David that's had to pit and gone onto mediums. Do you think it would have been worth the risk taking on the soft tyres to give you the opportunity to be super aggressive going into the last 9 or so laps once the safety car goes in?
Absolutely. I was surprised he didn't, if I'm honest. We've seen already some of these soft tyres last about 8 laps behind a safety car, maybe even more, and we've got a safety car and it's at the very beginning of it, so we'd be looking at 9 laps without a safety car, and I think soft tyres could easily do that. So I'm surprised he didn't go for those soft tyres, but I think he's erring on the side of caution. You know, he's got to get that 3-second time penalty out of the way. He's got to try and make that on whoever he's about. So this could really change things up for his season, especially his race. That 3-second could really make all the difference. I mean, I know it's not yet back underway, but you think that 3 seconds is currently leaving him down in 10th place from 7th. That's huge. Wait until he gets closer up the grid as well. When he's overtaking a car, drivers aren't necessarily going to push so much on him. They're just going to have to stay within that 3 seconds, and I think that's where you're going to really see him fall back down. We saw it with Sandman when he ended up on, you know, that country mile penalty that he ended up with that was like 40 seconds. He nearly ended up a lap behind everyone because of the penalties. You know, it makes a huge difference. And I know that was just one, but I think that might have been him pushing a little bit too hard to get to VSM Sandman. But we're going to see whether those medium tyres were the right decision or not. We are going to get around 11 laps left of racing here in Singapore. So we'll jump on board with RSO 121 as VSM Sandman is currently out on track. And for the 4th time, he is, of course, the pace setter. So when the safety car heads back in just a moment's time, we'll let him take us back onto the pit straight. This time, for the 4th time, a different driver just behind him. So each time he's set things back up for us, he's had a different driver just behind him, but I think Formula 1 Farah is standing right behind him as opposed to other drivers that maybe have given him that little bit further space. So is this going to be a case of a quick response from the Williams driver to try and put him under that pressure? We'll jump back on board with RSO 121 in a hope to get a good view of it as Toxic takes a time penalty of 3 seconds. Away we go. Sandman heading up onto the end of the pit straight, still trying to warm his tyres up ever so slightly. He's got Formula 1 Farah just behind him, RSO 121 just behind him as well, but this is closer between Formula 1 Farah and VSM Sandman than it has with any other driver and VSM Sandman in this race when the race has restarted. And those medium tyres could be all the difference between whether it's going to be a Ferrari or a Williams on the top step of this podium as Formula 1 Farah continues to put the pressure on him. Is he going to have a look up on the inside? No, he's not. He's going to stay just behind him whilst we take this corner. He's going to have another couple of opportunities though before at the end of this lap when we get to see DRS being re-enabled, nearly catches the wall but manages to steer just clear of it. He's now half a second behind the Ferrari as we go through to the end of Sector 1, the beginning in fact of Sector 2. Both the medium tyres of Formula 1 Farah and the hard tyres of VSM Sandman are of the same age as RSO 121 tries to close that gap on the two drivers that are competing for the top step of the podium at the moment. Danger David still sat in 6th place, still quite close to T-Bran in the Alfa Romeo though, as it looked like a very slow take of that corner, heading into the second DRS zone that we get on the Singapore track. The fastest lap does currently sit with VSM. Sandman is again a little bit wide. It looked like Formula 1 Power was going, and that's opened the gap a little bit, both for Sandman to take a distance and RS0121 to close the gap. The worry that Sandman's going to have is if RS0121 can get past him very quickly, and maybe even the No Sabo, his chances of finishing on the top step of the podium are in danger. And we've got Formula 1 Power now defending against RS0121. How long can he keep this for as we're getting ready to head on to the end of the first lap since the safety car headed back into the pit lane? As we've got a yellow flag, and it looks like it is with Kwan, the Williams. The Williams were doing so well, and he's gone a little bit wide and ended up in the wall. I'm not quite sure on the damage there, but we'll see if he heads back into the pits as the end of the first lap goes. RS0121 now 0.4 of a second just behind the Williams of Formula 1 Power. He looked like he was about to take an attempt onto the inside line, but it's forced out wide onto the outside to sit in third place. But we've got a Mercedes and a Williams fighting for second place on the podium as it stands at the moment. This little battle allowing Sandman to push further out as he goes onto the outside line. Goes very close to contact, ends up going off track as well, rejoins ahead of Formula 1 Power, keeps the inside line this time, doesn't collide with the wall, but I think Formula 1 Power has ended up going very, very slow as a result of that, and RS0121 takes second place, second step on the podium. Some very nice battling from the two of them, and I think there it looked like T-Brand's gone wide into the wall, and that's caused a collision there.
Big incident again.
You saw it, yeah?
Again. Yeah, just
good.
Again, exactly the same as we've had throughout the race when we've had safety cars. Cars starting to get a bit bunched up. And it's, again, with the street race, we've said it during qualifying, we've said at the start of the race, we've said it in every incident that we've had so far. I'm really surprised it's not a safety car, although T-Brand one isn't out, so maybe that's what saved it. But, yeah, just again, it's similar. Cars getting bunched up, and again, it only takes one car going slightly wide, slightly slow, slightly too fast, another car's not expecting it, and that ends in a collision. But Danger David now down into 8th place, and Sir Revo gets a 3-second time penalty. But yeah, the incident itself, mate, very much along the lines of what we've seen so far in this race.
Well, DRS has now been enabled, and those soft tyres look like they could make all the difference, but it's nearly 3 seconds the lead now between Sandman and RS0121 Formula 1 Power in third place. In the Williams, the No Sabo in fourth place in the McLaren. If he can get himself onto the podium, I'm going to be extremely proud, so I can't wait for that. Here we go with trucks then. We'll jump on board with the AlphaTauri on soft tyres. Half a second away from Tobliensen in sixth place. Both on soft tyres, closing that gap on the likes of Skid Solo. But then it's a 3.5 second gap between them and the McLaren of No Sabo. So it is going to be close in the battle if they can get past Skid Solo anytime soon. But at the moment, they just look to be battling with each other. Truckster, of course, starting at the back of the grid for this race after being disqualified from qualifying. I think he was up in 5th place, you said it was, Skin, before he got disqualified as well. So a great effort from him to get himself up into 7th place, and certainly a good shout for driver of the day if you're unsure who to pick. As we jump on board with the No Sabo in the McLaren, 8 tenths behind Formula 1 Power, and his chance to get himself onto a podium finish. We'll see if the upgrades from McLaren in real life can be put onto this game just for the sake of this race to see if we can get ourselves over the line. I'm excited to see just what happens with the McLaren. You're fine because Danger David and D. Perez do this for you all the time. The No Sabo and Maverick deserve this, as does every McLaren fan out there. So unbiased to one side, let's go McLaren.
Yeah, if you want, mate. If that's what makes you happy for 1 week, mate, let's make you happy for 1 week.
Well, you get this all the time, don't you? So it's very different for me. Very different for me. I don't get this.
Enjoy
this
it while it lasts, mate.
I will. As 7 tenths behind Formula 1 Power, DRS is open. He's got the opportunity on the inside line, but I think this straight might just be too far for him. It is the case, so he's going to have to yield and stay just behind Formula 1 Power for a little bit longer, as 2.3 seconds is now the gap between RS0121 and the current leader of VSM. Sandman, we've got the No Sabo down in 4th place now, 3 tenths behind Formula 1 Power.
Up in 4th place, I'll have you know, not down in 4th place. What a performance from him so far.
up in 4th place at the moment, 4 tenths behind Formula 1 Farah, heading through Sector 2 at the moment with the opportunity on the DRS zone again. If he can get it and the straight can last long enough for him, there's a chance he could still get himself onto a podium finish here for McLaren. Danger David, of course, falling down into 8th place after that incident that happened shortly after the last safety car went away as well. So is that the Red Bull's chances out of the window? We've got 7 laps left to go to see just what happens. He's out on the medium tyres, and of course with that 3-second time penalty as well, we'll see him fall down into 9th place. There's every chance that this race is falling into the favour of the defending world champion of VSM Saman, who is out in 1st place at the moment as the Nocebo goes up onto the outside, keeps the outside line against Formula 1 Farah with the assistance of DRS, takes 3rd place away from the Williams and holds that position going round into the next couple of corners with a little bit of runoff, uses that to his advantage to keep 3rd place ahead of Formula 1 Farah. But it's the Nocebo now that takes 3rd place with the assistance of DRS that makes all the difference. But he's still got a bit of defending work to do on those medium tyres if he's going to keep himself there. And Formula 1 Farah has collided with the wall. And that's advantage to the McLaren. Go on.
I was on board
just
with
going
him
wide.
again. I've caught it again. He's just gone. It's that same corner from earlier, going under the bridge. He's clattered into the wall. He were almost going at a speed where it was a straight and didn't even realise it were a corner. Yeah, smashed into the wall. His right tyre is blown to smithereens. And it's another one out of the race. 5th driver out of the race today. And no safety car. I don't know if that's due to how close we are to the end of the race, if that's an automatic thing, but you get that much damage and you block that bridge, that's a safety car under any other circumstances. So
Yeah.
I can only assume it's because we are in the last 5 or so laps. As Danger David is pitting again, gone on to soft tyres, really not sure where that will leave him come the end of the race. But yeah, huge crash for what was a fantastic race. It was only a couple of laps ago you were talking about the fantastic race that Williams were having, and now you've got Kwon down in 14th and Farah is out. So yeah, big turnaround for Williams, unfortunately.
Well, there's 6 laps left to go, and since moving up into 3rd place, the Nocebo has gained around half a second on RS 0121, but we are on board with Trugster, who started the race in 18th place after the disqualification, currently sat in 5th place in the AlphaTauri, and he is piling the pressure on those soft tyres and onto the Aston Martin of Skid Solo, heading through Sector 3 quite comfortably. There is another DRS zone coming up, of course, onto the pit straight, but we are just going to pass where the incident of Formula 1 Farah crashing out was, and that is under the bridge, and we're going to see if he can get ahead of Skid Solo by the end of lap 26. He's very much on the tail of him, and I think DRS again could be the difference maker. It's just whether the straight is going to be long enough. A couple of corners later, there is another opportunity for him, so it could set him up nicely. DRS opened nice and early up alongside here with Skid Solo heading into the first corner, and Skid Solo holds that position in the Aston Martin quite nicely. It was the awful camera that the game decided to give us there, which didn't really explain too much for us. See if he's managed to keep that position. He was very close to being outside of the DRS detection zone in 1 second as he goes out onto the pit straight, or another straight should I say, sorry, and he has been given DRS, so a bit of a longer straight for him now to see if he can close the gap even further on Skid Solo. Not quite enough, and the Aston Martin holds 4th place as it stands at the moment. But whilst these two are battling, it's given the McLaren of Nocebo a chance to push himself further on, and I think the only other place we've got much of a battle is that in the battle for 10th place, for 9th place should I say, sorry, where Sir Ibo is battling with the Alpine of Racing Wheel. He's going to have DRS going into the middle of Sector 1 as well. Going to have to try and keep up onto the inside of him, and he's gone actually onto the outside to try and keep this line as well, and I think it's going to be the difference maker there. He does go onto the outside, which makes it a little bit easier for Racing Wheel to hold that position, but with Danger David down in 11th place, is this race over for the Red Bull skin?
I don't want to admit it, mate, but I have to say, yeah, the Perez out early doors. Danger David has pitted twice in the last 4 laps, safety car or not, down in 11th, and I'm not really sure where he can finish with this little amount of time to go. The gap does seem to be increasing between everyone at the moment. I'm on board with Sir Ibo in 10th. He's been kind of there or thereabouts on Racing Wheel the last lap or so, but not really getting in a position where he can overtake. Everyone else is a second behind the person in front. So as it stands, driver of the day, the No Sabo, one of the, no disrespect men, but usually one of the drivers towards the back end of the grid, has found his way up onto a podium spot. Trusted a little bit of a kick out there from his back end, but managed to keep it under control. But yeah, top story is Sandman winning yet again as it stands. Danger David and D. Perez currently scoring minimal points for Red Bull when it comes to that constructors.
That's class. That's absolutely class. I'm just going to interrupt you there because of what Danger David's just done. You're talking about how it's minimal points for Red Bull, but the phenomenal overtake he's just provided us with Cerebro and Racing Wheel is beyond this world. In 2 corners, taking it past the Haas and then taking it past the Alpine, very composed, very confidently, and he's already 1.5 seconds ahead of the Alpine up into 9th place. So it's probably too little too late for him to really put any pressure on Toxic, but he's up into 9th place, and it's really damage limitation for the Red Bull. It was really strange, that decision to box, wasn't it, on the second safety car? And of course, it's changed it all for him, hasn't it? He's down onto 9th place at the minute, and it's gifted an excellent chance for Ferrari to close that gap in the Constructors' Championship. But yeah, sorry for interrupting, but that was worth the mention for Danger David. Yeah,
definitely, mate. We spoke earlier, I was saying that I'm hoping for a race where Danger David doesn't have an incident early doors and has to spend the race climbing up from the back of the track, but maybe that's what works for him because he's avoided incident today. He's been sort of top 3 for the majority of the race, other than when there's been a safety car and pitting and things, and he's ended up down in 9th. So maybe early incident and working his way back up is the formula for Danger David. I don't know. But I've finally got what I wanted, which is something a little bit different, and he's ended up finishing a lot lower than what he normally does there.
Yeah, I think the closest we've got for competition at the moment is that of Cerebro, T-Bran and Racing Wheel, as now it's the turn of T-Bran. I think this battle between Cerebro and Racing Wheel is just inviting other cars to kind of catch up with them, because it's just worked in the favour of Danger David, who already has a 10-second lead over Racing Wheel as T-Bran manages to get the position on the inside line there over Cerebro and takes 11th place away from him. Danger David, the fastest lap, 1:40.2 in a race environment is an incredible time to set, and he's cut that gap down by 15 seconds in the last lap on Toxic CZ10. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe it is rags to riches that works in favour of Danger David in these sort of races. Multiple times throughout the season we've seen him fall towards the back of the grid, work his way back up, and it seems to be working in his favour again. Damage limitation is still the case though for Red Bull. I can't see him competing with the very front of this track, and don't forget, of course, there is still a 3-second time penalty that we need to add on. There is Toxic just behind Quincy in the battle for 7th place. Quincy defending it quite nicely at the moment, but that is the only real challenge we've got going on at the moment. I know T-Bran's quite close to Racing Wheel in the battle for 10th place, but of course the Mercedes of Quincy very slow in qualifying, so he'll be happy with the top 7 finish. His teammate, of course, sat on the second step of the podium, so in that little battle he'll be slightly disappointed in, but over the course of the entire qualifying and race weekend, I'd say advantage has to go to RS0121. So Skin, with 2 laps left to go before I bring it home, I'll ask you for your driver of the day.
It's got to be the No Sabo. Like I said, no disrespect, but he's usually one of the drivers towards the back end of the grid to get, a little bit of a kick out there from Cerebro, but great control to keep it on track. I've got to give it No Sabo. You've got to give him the credit. I'm sure coming off the back of this race, if we can hold on to the 3rd place and that final spot on the podium for this last couple of laps, going to be absolutely buzzing heading into the next race in a couple of weeks' time.
See, the thing is here is I was very close to giving this Trugster, and a large part of me wants to give it to Trugster because he started in 18th and he's currently in 5th place, and his strategy has been on point, his driving has been on point to get him there. But I have to agree with you. It's got to be the No Sabo, just because of the way he's approached this race. Like you say, he's not somebody that we normally see this high up, but again, somebody that's absolutely nailed this strategy. He's managed to get these medium tyres to what is currently 14 laps. The only issue is, at the moment, it could be neck and neck between him and Skid Solo as to which one actually finishes on the final step of the podium. It looks like the age of those tyres are starting to catch up with him ever so slightly, and the Aston Martin is going to have a last couple of laps to put the pressure on. If he can get it within a second, this really is anybody's race for 3rd place. VSM Sandman, he's long gone in the distance. RS0121, yep, he's taken 2nd place. So this 3rd place is what both of them are really going to be fighting for. Truxter's too far behind. It is a 2-horse race for 3rd place. And if they can get inside of the DRS zone, there might still be entertainment for the podium for us yet to see. But Danger David has cut off another 12 seconds, and he's now in DRS zone of Toxic in the battle for 8th place, as we've got a yellow flag. And I want to say that has gone to Quan as Danger David. Again, we joined him just as he finishes the overtake there on Toxic to leave it in Alfa Romeo 9 and 10 place. But he's up into 8th place, and I think before he pitted, he was actually in 10th. So he's gained a phenomenal amount of time there to get himself up into 8th. And it doesn't even look like he's finished there. He's still another lap left, and he's closing the gap onto Quincy. And this guy, when the pressure is on, all bets are off. He's a different driver completely, and he's up in 8th place at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Maybe when we get to Canada in a couple of weeks' time, I know you're not going to be there for that race as you're away, mate. I hope you enjoy your time off, and hope everyone listening joins me in wishing you a good break, as you've been absolutely phenomenal tonight, as you always are. But yeah, I'm wondering if Danger David makes a mad dive going into the first corner in Canada, just to push him towards the back of the track to give him something to chase. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's when he's at his best. Just on board with Skid Solo for these last couple of laps. I'm sure he's going to push hard to try and get this final spot. The No Sabo, though, not really giving him an opportunity as it stands to close the gap and clean that final podium. I'll be honest. I'll be absolutely gutted if the No Sabo just loses out on that podium spot with around a lap and a half to go, is it? Yeah, around that. But yeah, I mean, Sandman again. What do you think? We're talking a lot about the rest of the grid, which is good. It's, we do spend a lot of the time talking about the usual suspects, but as we go into the final lap, it's worth talking about. 10-second gap. There's been multiple safety cars, multiple different strategy changes, multiple crashes across the track, but he's avoided any and all incident, and he's gained yet another comfortable win, which in our time commentating, or at least our time commentating where it's been both of us, seems to have been the case when Johnsy's not on the track. But yeah, another dominant win for the man that's won the last 3 Drivers' Championships in this league.
Yeah, certainly. So under the bright lights and the dark nights that Singapore has to offer, Sandman from pole position with 3 different one-shot qualifying sessions he set himself up for, leaving it till the last minute to take pole position away from Danger David in the qualifying session earlier on, has led from almost the very beginning of this race. And we said at the very beginning, we don't get to see many races where only one stop has been used. VSM Sandman has done just that.
Game over. Skid Solo was spun, and that should now mean that the No Sabo, unless he has a similar incident, will claim the 3rd spot. Sorry to interrupt you, Adam. I was just on board with Skid Solo, keeping an eye on the race for that final podium spot, and yeah, he took a spin. So the No Sabo now relatively comfortable with just under a 6-second gap to 4th. But again, anything can happen, as we can see. Even when you're driving by yourself, this track can still offer problems, as we've just seen there. Skid Solo hasn't lost a position, is still 4th, but it seems like the race for that final podium spot is now over.
Yeah, the race from Sandman has been simply faultless from start to finish. I think he lost first place just once when he chose to pit, but he crosses the line now to answer his critics and takes first place away from what everyone expected to be a nice, confident Red Bull 1-2. He is somewhat 16 seconds ahead of the Mercedes of RS0121, who will cross the line to give it a good weekend for the Mercedes, who actually get themselves a strong points finish, and of course onto the second step of the podium. And then we're going to jump on to my boy, the No Sabo, in the McLaren. 3 seconds behind. I say this every single time a McLaren does well, and No Sabo takes 3rd place. Skid Solo rue the chances that he missed, but he'll take 4th place in the Aston Martin. And then Trugster, who is still under a little bit of pressure from VSM Sandman's teammate in Tobelenzen, is what we're going to go with at the final point of this. He's gone into the wall, but he's gone into the wall. He's gone a little bit too early, maybe? No, I think he's gone just in time. He's done the exact same as what Sandman does. It's the Ferraris. They piss about all the time. Drugster takes 5th place. Quincy takes 7th place. Danger David, after multiple pit stops and strategy changes himself, will take 8th place. Toxic then in the Alfa Romeo in 9th place. 10th place to Tibran. Racing Wheel will take 11th place in the Alpine, as we'll just... despite his penalties, will hold on to 12th place. And it means bringing us home and concluding the race in the Williams. It looked very good at one point for both Quan and Formula 1 Farah. One got a DNF One finished in the lowest ranked place of all the classifications, and it's not been quite the weekend they'd hoped for after so much promise was given to them. So we've got Sandman on the top step, RS0121 in second place, and then the No Sabo in third place. So it's nice to see an array of different teams, I dare say, in the top 3 positions. We're used to just seeing, of course, VSM Sandman, AMS Johnsy, and Nay Danger David. So it's nice to see RS and the No Sabo up there, just to be a little bit of a change. We're hoping in just a few moments' time, of course, we'll get reaction from both of them. Skin, I'll let you take away, of course, one of those interviews. Which one do you want?
I mean, I can't take the McLaren off you, surely.
I was hoping not.
Well, there you go then.
There we go. So I'll take the McLaren one, and of course VSM Sandman won't be joining us for the post-race interview. He doesn't tend to do that, but that's absolutely fine. It's just a shame that he finishes on the podium nearly every race. So we are one interview down every single week. But in just a moment's time, we'll be back to bring you the final thoughts from the drivers that did get to finish on the podium. But it looks like it is going to be advantage VSM Sandman in the Drivers' Championship, and advantage Ferrari despite his third different teammate for the season. They are currently closing that gap on Haas and Red Bull at the top of the Constructors' Championship.